The stars had never looked so beautiful. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiance, and watched the lights of 10,000 enemy ships fill the darkness of space. Each light was a vessel carrying weapons meant to kill his people. Each light was a death sentence written by aliens who had never even tried to understand humanity. Was 42 years old. He had gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too many battles, but his hands were steady on the command console. They had always been steady, even now, at the end of everything. "Admiral," said Lieutenant from her communications station. Her voice was calm but could see her hands shaking. She was only 23. She should have been living her life, falling in love, building a future. Instead, she was here, about to die with the rest of them. "The Council flagship is transmitting on all frequencies." "Let me hear it," said. The voice that filled the bridge was cold and emotionless. It belonged to High Counselor Al of the Or, leader of the Galactic Council. "Primitive species designated human is hereby sentenced to purification. Your aggression, your breeding rates, and your violent nature pose an unacceptable threat to galactic peace. May the galaxy know tranquility once your kind is erased." Closed his eyes for a moment. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They had barely begun to explore the stars when they encountered the Council. At first, there had been hope. Humanity had dreamed of friendship with alien species, of sharing knowledge and culture, of building something beautiful together. The Council had other ideas. They watched humanity with growing fear. Humans bred too fast. Humans were too creative. Humans solved problems with violence when other species would surrender. The Council saw what humanity might become in 1,000 years, and they decided to end the threat before it could grow. The vote for human extinction was unanimous. "Admiral," said Commander, his first officer, "the evacuation fleet reports 70% of remaining population loaded. They need more time." Nodded. 4 billion people were trying to escape Earth on every ship humanity possessed. Generation ships, cargo vessels, passenger liners, anything that could carry people and fly through space. They had no destination. They only had hope that somewhere in the vast emptiness between galaxies, they might find a place to hide and survive. "Then we give them time," said. "All ships form defensive line. We hold until the evacuation is complete." 300 human warships faced 10,000 Council vessels. Everyone on the bridge knew the math. They could not win. They could only buy hours with their lives. The first wave of Council ships attacked with energy weapons that turned human vessels into expanding clouds of fire and metal. Watched the Braveheart explode, then the Soul's Pride, then the Earth's last sun. Each ship was crewed by people he knew. Each explosion was hundreds of lives ending in an instant. But human ships fought back with everything they had. They were outnumbered, but they were not outmatched in courage. Pilots flew their damaged ships into enemy formations and detonated their reactors. Gunners kept firing even as their compartments filled with smoke and flame. Engineers held broken ships together with their bare hands and desperate prayers. Lieutenant tracked the evacuation fleet's progress. 80% loaded, Admiral. The Hope of Tomorrow just cleared Earth orbit with 50,000 refugees. "Good," said. Behind him, the bridge shook as enemy fire struck the Defiance. Sparks flew from damaged consoles. Someone screamed in pain. "Keep tracking them. Every ship that escapes is a victory." The battle lasted for 11 days. Did not sleep. He barely ate. He watched his fleet die around him, ship by ship, crew by crew. The Council seemed surprised by human resistance. They had expected quick surrender. Instead, they found warriors who would rather die standing than live on their knees. By the 7th day, only 80 human ships remained. By the 10th day, only 20. On the 11th day, the Defiance stood alone against an armada. "Admiral," said, her voice breaking, "evacuation fleet reports complete loading. All ships have left Earth orbit. They're heading for the outer rim." allowed himself a small smile. 4 billion humans would live, they would remember, and someday they would return. "Sir," Commander said, "the Council flagship is moving to intercept the evacuation fleet, if they reach it." "They won't," said. He looked around his bridge at the crew who had stayed with him to the end. 20 men and women who could have escaped but chose to fight. "You all know what happens next. Anyone who wants to leave, there are still escape pods." No one moved. Wiped tears from her eyes and turned back to her console. "I'm staying, Admiral. Someone has to send the final message." Felt pride fill his chest. This was humanity. This was what the Council feared and could never understand. Humans did not abandon each other. Humans did not give up. Humans faced death with their eyes open and their hearts full of fire. "Navigation," ordered, "plot a collision course with the Council flagship. Engineering, overload the main reactor on my command. We're going to ram them." The Defiance accelerated toward the massive alien vessel. Council ships tried to stop them, but the old warship had one last trick, had saved his best missiles for this moment. They launched in a spread that forced enemy ships to scatter, opening a path straight to the flagship. Said, "Send this message to the evacuation fleet. Record everything." She nodded, activating the recording system. Straightened his uniform and looked into the camera. Behind him, the Council flagship grew larger in minutes, they would collide. "This is Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Fleet," he said. "I am speaking to every human who survives this day. Remember what happened here. Remember that the Council gave us no choice, no mercy, no chance to prove ourselves. They judged us guilty of crimes we might commit in a future we were never allowed to have." The ship shook violently. Fires were burning somewhere on the lower decks. "But also remember this," continued. "We are human. We survived ice ages and plagues. We survived wars with ourselves. We will survive this. Find a safe place. Build, grow, learn, and when you are strong enough, return. Show the galaxy what humanity truly is, not the monsters they fear, but something greater." The Council flagship filled the entire now. Could see its hull, its weapons ports, its bridge where the aliens who ordered his species' death sat in comfortable chairs. "We will remember this," said, his voice strong and clear, "and we will return." He ended the recording. "Transmit it, then everyone hold on." The message flew across space toward the fleeing evacuation fleet as the Defiance struck the Council flagship at maximum velocity. The reactor overloaded at the moment of impact. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface, a new star burning bright in the night sky for just a moment before fading into darkness. The Council celebrated their victory. They had purified the galaxy of the human threat. They burned Earth until its oceans boiled away. They destroyed every human structure, every monument, every sign that the species had ever existed. But they never found the evacuation fleet. 4 billion humans disappeared into the void between galaxies, carrying with them the memory of Park, sacrifice, and the promise in his final words. They would remember, and one day they would return. 300 years passed like a long, dark dream. Captain Lee stood on the observation deck of the stealth cruiser Silent Fury and watched stars drift slowly past. These were not the stars her ancestors had known. These were stranger suns in a distant corner of the universe, far from the galaxy that had tried to murder her people. Was 31 years old with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been born on New Sol, the largest of 12 human colony worlds hidden in a cluster far beyond the galactic rim. She had never breathed Earth air or walked in Earth forests, but she knew her better than she knew her own face. Every human child learned about Earth before they learned anything else. They learned about the blue oceans and green mountains. They learned about the cities where billions once lived. They learned about art and music and literature that stretched back thousands of years. And they learned about the burning, how the Council had turned paradise into ash and glass. carried a small stone in her pocket wherever she went. Her grandmother had brought it from Earth on the evacuation fleet, passed down through generations. It was just a gray rock, nothing special, but it had touched Earth soil. It was proof that home had been real. "Captain," said Navigator from the doorway, "we're approaching Council space. Should I wake the crew?" Nodded. "Wake them, brief them, we have work to do." The Silent Fury was one of 200 reconnaissance ships that had been mapping Council territory for decades. They used technology the Council could not detect, phase drives that let them slip through space like ghosts, sensor screens that made them invisible to every scanner in the galaxy. Human engineers had spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of hiding in plain sight. Fleet Admiral Minu had given her orders personally. Minu was 73 years old, but his mind was sharp as a blade. His grandfather had served on Admiral Park's bridge and survived only because he was unconscious in a medical pod during the final charge. The old man had lived long enough to tell his grandson everything: the sounds of battle, the smell of smoke, the Admiral's calm voice as he ordered the collision course. Minu never forgot. None of them forgot. "The Council thinks we're dead," Minu had told before her mission. "They erased us from their history. Speaking about humans is illegal on most Council worlds. Children grow up never knowing we existed. Let them believe the lie. We're not ready to reveal ourselves. Not yet." Understood. Humanity had spent 300 years preparing for a single moment. They had built cities in the darkness between galaxies. They had raised generation after generation with one purpose: survival and return. They could not risk discovery until they were strong enough to face anything the galaxy could throw at them. The Silent Fury slipped into Council space like a shadow sliding under a door, watched her crew work with quiet efficiency. They were all young, all born in exile, all carrying the same fire in their hearts. Communications Officer Park monitored Council transmissions. Engineer Song kept the phase drive running perfectly. Tactical Officer Myra tracked every ship within 100 light years. They moved through enemy territory like wolves among sleeping sheep. Captain said, "I'm picking up something interesting, a Council news broadcast." Raised an eyebrow, put it on speakers. The alien voice was translated automatically by ship computers. "Today marks the 300th anniversary of galactic peace. High Counselor Al will address the Assembly to celebrate 3 centuries of stability and prosperity. The Council reminds all citizens that this era of peace was made possible by the wisdom of our ancestors, who protected us from threats both external and internal." Laughed bitterly. "Threats, they mean us. They don't even say our name anymore," Myra added. "We're just threats, internal problems, as if 9 billion murdered people were just a mess to clean up." Said nothing. She had heard broadcasts like this before. The Council had convinced themselves that destroying humanity was good and necessary. They told themselves they had protected the galaxy from monsters. They slept peacefully at night, never knowing that the monsters they feared were very much alive and watching every move they made. The mission took 3 weeks, and her crew mapped military installations, recorded ship movements, and downloaded technological databases from unprotected Council networks. The information they gathered would go back to Fleet Command on New Sol, where analysts would study every detail. What they found confirmed everything humanity suspected. "Their technology hasn't changed in 200 years, reported, amazement in his voice. "They're using the same ship designs, the same weapons, the same everything. It's like they stopped trying to improve." Nodded. "They got comfortable. They have no enemies, no competition. Why innovate when you rule everything?" Humanity had taken the opposite path. In exile, they had nothing but their minds and their determination. They invented new technologies out of necessity. They created weapons the Council could not imagine. They built ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. Every generation was smarter and stronger than the one before. The phase drive alone would change everything. Council ships needed jump gates, massive structures that created artificial wormholes between systems. Humans could go anywhere, anytime, without warning. They could appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. When returned to New Seoul, she delivered her report to Admiral Minyu personally. "The Council has 30,000 warships," she said. "Most are outdated. Their crews are poorly trained. They haven't fought a real war in centuries." Minyu studied the data on his screen. Outside his office window, the city of New Seoul spread across the valley, 12 million humans living in towers of glass and steel, surrounded by forests and farms that made the air smell sweet and clean. This world had been a dead rock when the evacuation fleet found it. Human hands had made it into paradise. "And our fleet?" Minyu asked. 30,000 ships, sir, but ours are better, faster, stronger. Our crews train every day for combat. The Council soldiers train once a year if their commanders remember to schedule it." Minyu was quiet for a long moment, could see calculations running behind his eyes. 30,000 against 30,000, but human ships could phase through matter, becoming untouchable ghosts. Human weapons could crack planets. Human soldiers wore powered armor that made them nearly invincible. If they wanted revenge, they could take it. They could burn Council worlds the way Earth had been burned. They could make the aliens feel every drop of pain humanity had suffered. "We wait," Minyu finally said. "Blinked, sir." "We wait," the Admiral repeated. "We're strong enough to win now, but winning isn't enough. We need to be needed. We need them to come to us, begging for help. Only then will the galaxy truly understand what they did to us, and what we chose not to do in return." Thought about her grandmother's stone, still in her pocket. She thought about Earth, about Park, about 4 billion people who had fled into darkness with nothing but hope. "You think they'll need us someday?" she asked. Minyu smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen the future and knew exactly what it held. "Something is coming," he said. "Something from beyond the galactic rim. Our deep space sensors have been tracking movement for decades. Something huge, something hungry, and when it arrives, the Council will have no idea what to do." He turned back to the window, watching his people go about their lives in the city below. "We have waited 300 years. We can wait a little longer, and when the time comes, we will be ready." Saluted and left the office. As she walked through New Seoul streets, she looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the galaxy that had tried to kill her people was sleeping peacefully, unaware that humanity still existed. They would learn the truth soon enough, and when they did, they would understand that some things cannot be killed. Some things only grow stronger in the darkness. The first warning came from the edge of the galaxy, where a small mining colony sent a distress signal that lasted exactly 14 seconds before cutting off. The message was simple: "Something is here. Something is eating us. Help, please help." No one came to help. The Council sent a patrol ship to investigate 3 weeks later. The patrol ship never returned. High Counselor Al of the Or sat in his private chambers on the capital world of and read the reports with growing fear. In the past 6 months, 37 colonies had gone silent. Not attacked, not invaded, silent. When scout ships finally reached these worlds, they found nothing. No buildings, no bodies, no signs that life had ever existed there at all. The ground itself had been stripped down to bare rock. Even the atmosphere was thinner, as if something had eaten the very air. Al was 400 years old, ancient even by Or standards. He had been a young officer when the Council voted to destroy humanity. He remembered the debates, the fear, the final decision that it was better to kill billions than risk what they might become. He had voted yes without hesitation. Now, looking at the reports of vanishing colonies, he felt something he had not felt in 3 centuries: terror. His aide knocked on the door. "Counselor, the emergency session is about to begin. Representatives from all species are waiting." Al straightened his formal robes and walked to the great assembly hall. The room was massive, designed to hold thousands of delegates from hundreds of worlds. Today, every seat was filled. Every face was afraid. "We have confirmed reports," Al announced, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the hall. "The threat we face is unlike anything in our recorded history. We are calling it the Void Swarm." He activated the holographic display. Images appeared in the air, images captured by the last surviving scouts before their ships were consumed. The swarm was not one creature. It was billions of creatures acting as one. They looked like insects made of metal and flesh, ranging from tiny things the size of a fist to massive beasts larger than warships. They moved through space without ships, their bodies somehow surviving the vacuum. They ate everything: rock, metal, flesh, energy. They left nothing behind. "Our scientists believe the swarm originated from beyond the galactic rim," Al continued. "They have been traveling through the void between galaxies for millions of years, consuming everything in their path. Now they have found us." A delegate stood up. There were tall beings with blue skin and 4 arms. They were known for their calm logic, but this one's voice was shaking. "How many are there? Can we fight them?" "Our estimates suggest at least 1 billion individual creatures," Al said. "Possibly more. They adapt to our weapons within hours. Energy weapons became useless after the first engagement. Kinetic weapons lasted longer, but they are already developing armor that resists projectiles. As for whether we can fight them—" He paused. The silence in the hall was heavy with dread. "Our combined military has already lost 40% of its ships in failed defensive actions. The swarm is moving toward the core worlds. At their current speed, they will reach in 6 months." The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other. Some accused the military of incompetence. Others demanded immediate evacuation of the core worlds. A few simply sat in shocked silence, understanding that everything they knew was about to end. Counselor of the stood slowly. There were small beings, barely reaching a human's waist, but they were known throughout the galaxy for their intelligence and their memory. Was very old, even by standards. She remembered things that others had forgotten. "I may have a solution," she said. Her voice was quiet, but something in it made the hall go silent. "Or rather, I may know someone who does." Al frowned. "Speak, counselor." 300 years ago we faced another threat. A species that bred too fast, fought too hard, and refused to die. We decided they were too dangerous to exist, so we killed them. Or we tried to. The word hung in the air like poison: humans. "That is a forbidden topic," another delegate said. "Speaking of the purification is exactly what we need to do," I interrupted. "I have spent decades studying sealed archives. I found transmissions, counselor. Transmissions suggesting that the human evacuation fleet escaped our forces. If any humans survived, they have had 300 years to prepare. 300 years to grow. 300 years to develop technology while we sat comfortable and unchanged." Al felt cold despite the warm air. "You are suggesting that we seek help from a species we tried to exterminate." "I am suggesting that we have no choice. Our weapons do not work against the swarm. Our tactics fail. Our ships are torn apart like paper. Humans were the finest warriors the galaxy ever produced. If they still exist, they may be our only hope." The hall exploded in argument again. Many delegates refused to believe humans could have survived. Others said that even if they had, they would never help the council. Why would they, after what was done to them? But I had planted a seed of desperate hope. The council voted to search for humanity. They sent ships in every direction, broadcasting messages of peace and pleas for help. They did not expect a response. They received one within 3 days. A single ship appeared in space, a vessel unlike anything Council scientists had ever seen. It was small, sleek, and completely black except for a single red stripe along its hull. The stripe was the color of blood, the color of memory. The ship made no attempt to hide. It simply hung in space, waiting. Al personally went to the communications center. His hands trembled as he opened a channel to the unknown vessel. "This is High Counselor Al of the Galactic Council. We have sent messages seeking contact with survivors of the species known as humans. Please identify yourself." The response came in perfect galactic common, but the voice was cold and hard as steel. "This is the human reconnaissance vessel Silent Fury, Captain Lee commanding. We have received your messages, Counselor. Humanity has decided to respond. An official delegation will arrive in 48 hours to discuss your situation." Al's throat tightened. You still exist." There was a pause. When spoke again, her voice carried 3 centuries of pain and anger and patient, burning resolve. "We exist, Counselor. We remember everything. And now it seems you need us. The delegation will arrive in 48 hours. I suggest you prepare yourselves." The channel closed. Al stood alone in the communications center, staring at the blank screen. Outside, the swarm was consuming colony after colony, moving closer with every passing day. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, the species he had helped condemn to death was coming. He had voted to destroy humanity because he feared what they might become. Now he would find out exactly what they had become. He was not sure which frightened him more, the swarm or the people coming to face it. The human fleet arrived exactly 48 hours later. One moment the space around was empty. The next moment, 1,000 warships filled the void, appearing from nowhere as if they had stepped through an invisible door. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way, sleek and dark, with clean lines and surfaces that seemed to drink in light. They made council vessels look like children's toys. Every alarm on the planet screamed warnings. Defense platforms armed themselves automatically. Millions of citizens looked up at the sky and saw the impossible, the return of a dead species. Ambassador Han watched the chaos from the window of her shuttle as it descended toward the council chamber. She was 45 years old with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a tight braid. Her face was calm, but her heart was beating fast. She had trained her entire life for this moment. Every diplomat in the human government had dreamed of it. "Ambassador," said Admiral from the seat beside her, "defense platforms are targeting our ships. Should I order countermeasures?" Shook her head. "Let them target us. They won't fire. They can't afford to." Was 52 years old, a warrior who had spent 3 decades preparing for a war he hoped would never come. His uniform was simple black with red stripes on the shoulders, the same red that marked every human ship. The color of Earth's blood, the color of memory. Behind them sat 20 soldiers in powered armor. Each suit made its wearer 8 feet tall and strong enough to tear through walls. The armor was polished to a mirror shine. It was designed to impress and intimidate. The shuttle landed in the plaza outside the council chamber, stepped out first, followed by the guards. The plaza was surrounded by thousands of alien faces, and dozens of other species. They stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and wonder. These are the monsters their grandparents warned them about, thought. The nightmare species that almost destroyed galactic peace, except we never did anything except exist. She walked forward without hesitation. Her steps were measured and confident. She had practiced this walk 1,000 times, knowing that every movement would be recorded and analyzed. Humanity's first public appearance in 300 years had to be perfect. The doors of the council chamber opened automatically, entered the great assembly hall, and looked around at the gathered delegates. The room was designed to make visitors feel small and unimportant. Massive pillars stretched toward a distant ceiling. Thousands of seats rose in tiers around a central platform. It did not work on. She walked to the center of the floor and stood there, straight and proud, while Admiral and the guards arranged themselves behind her. High Counselor Al descended from his elevated seat to meet her. He was tall for a or, with gray skin and large dark eyes that showed his age. He moved slowly, carefully, as if approaching a dangerous animal. "Ambassador," he said, his voice echoing through the silent hall, "humanity's survival is unexpected. We are pleased to see your species has thrived." Smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You are not pleased, Counselor. You are terrified. 300 years ago you voted to erase humanity from existence. You killed 9 billion people. You burned until the oceans boiled away. And now you need our help." A murmur ran through the assembly. No one had ever spoken to the High Counselor this way. Al's hands tightened at his sides. The decision of our ancestors was made in different times, under different circumstances. We understand if humanity harbors anger toward the Council. "Anger," repeated the word as if tasting it. "Anger is what you feel when someone insults you. What we feel has no name in any language. Our children are taught the burning before they learn to read. Every human alive carries the memory of that day in their blood. We do not forgive. We do not forget." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "But we are not like you." Counselor of the stood up. "Ambassador, please, the swarm is killing millions. Our colonies are being consumed. Our military cannot stop them. Whatever happened in the past, surely we can." "Surely we can what?" Admiral spoke for the first time. His voice was hard and cold. "Make peace. Become friends. You tried to exterminate us, Counselor. Every man, woman, and child. You hunted us across the stars. You burned our planet to glass. And when you finished, you erased us from your history. You made it illegal to speak our name." He stepped forward, and several council guards reached for their weapons. The human soldiers did not react. They did not need to. Their armor alone was enough to destroy every guard in the room. 300 years ago," continued, "Admiral Park died ramming his ship into your flagship. His last words were, 'We will remember and we will return.' We have done both. We could destroy you now. We have the technology. We have the ships. We have 300 years of rage burning in our hearts." The hall was silent. Every delegate was frozen in place. "But that would make us like you," said, "and we are better than that." Nodded and spoke again, her voice calm and measured. "Humanity has observed the swarm's advance. We have analyzed their tactics, their biology, their weaknesses. We can stop them. We can protect your worlds and save your people." "Then you will help us?" Al asked, hope creeping into his voice. "We will," said, "but there will be conditions." She pulled a small device from her pocket and activated it. A holographic document appeared in the air, pages of text in every major galactic language. "First, the Council as it currently exists will be dissolved. A new galactic government will be formed with human representation at its highest levels. We will never again be subjects to be judged and condemned. We will be equals." Murmurs of protest rose from the assembly. "Second, the truth of what happened to humanity will be taught in every school on every world. No more sealed archives. No more forbidden topics. Every child in the galaxy will learn what the Council did and what we chose not to do in return. Third, the worlds that were stolen from us, Earth and its system, will be returned to human control. We will rebuild we will make it green again. And fourth," paused, looking directly at Al, "you will apologize, not privately, not quietly. Every leader of every species will publicly acknowledge the crime that was committed against humanity, and you will beg for our forgiveness." Al's face twisted with emotion. Pride, shame, fear, desperation, all fighting for control. "These terms are difficult," he said finally. "They are not negotiable," replied. "Accept them and we will become your shield against the darkness. Reject them and we will return to our corner of the universe. We survived alone once. We can do it again. The question is, can you?" The assembly erupted in furious debate. Some delegates screamed that humans were monsters who should be destroyed again. Others begged their colleagues to accept the terms before it was too late. A spoke passionately about the millions dying while they argued about pride. Al raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the hall to quiet down. "We accept your terms," he said. The words seemed to cause him physical pain. "The Council agrees to human conditions. In return, we ask only that you honor your promise to protect us." Nodded. "Admiral, send the signal. The fleet is authorized to engage the swarm." Touched a device on his wrist. Somewhere in space, 1,000 human warships turned toward the edge of the galaxy, where the swarm was devouring everything in its path. The war for survival had begun, and humanity was leading the charge. The Battle of Prime would be remembered for 10,000 years. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Silent Fury and watched the swarm approach. There were millions of them, a living wave of teeth and metal and hunger stretching across the stars. They moved like a single creature, flowing around obstacles, surrounding prey, consuming everything they touched. Behind the human fleet, the planet Prime hung in space like a blue jewel. 40 billion lived there, the largest population center in the region. If the swarm reached the planet, they would all die in hours. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Commander from the navigation console. "The Admiral is waiting for your signal." Nodded. Her ship was at the vanguard of the human fleet, the tip of the spear. She had asked for this position. After 30 years of reconnaissance missions, she wanted to be the first human to strike back against a galaxy that had tried to murder her people. Admiral's voice came through the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is Admiral. 300 years ago, the galaxy tried to end us. They failed. Today, we show them why." Felt the words settle into her bones. Around her, the crew of the Silent Fury straightened at their stations. They were all young, all born in exile, all carrying the weight of their ancestors' suffering. "Phase drives active," continued. "Weapons free. Remember who you are. Remember why we fight, for Earth, for those we lost, for the future we will build. All ships attack." 30,000 human vessels disappeared. The swarm continued forward, unaware that anything had changed. Their primitive senses could not detect phase space. They did not understand that the human fleet had not fled, but had instead stepped sideways into a dimension they could not perceive. Then the humans reappeared, not in front of the swarm, but inside it. The Silent Fury materialized in the center of a cluster of bioships, gave her orders calmly. "Gravity cannons, fire at will." The gravity cannon was humanity's greatest weapon. It created focused points of intense gravitational force, artificial singularities that crushed everything in their radius into balls of compressed matter. The effect was devastating. Swarm creatures larger than mountains collapsed into themselves, their bodies squeezed down to the size of coins. Smaller creatures were pulled into the gravity wells and destroyed by the millions. The swarm had never faced anything like this. They tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. Gravity was not a weapon that could be resisted with armor or evolution. Across the battlefield, human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They would phase in, unleash destruction, and phase out before the swarm could respond. Council observers watched from a safe distance, unable to believe what they were seeing. "This is impossible," muttered a admiral on one of the observation ships. "They are moving through the swarm as if it were not there." "They have been preparing for 300 years, replied Counselor, who had insisted on witnessing the battle personally. "While we sat comfortable and unchanged, they were building, learning, growing. We tried to destroy them because we feared what they might become. Now we see." The battle lasted 7 hours. By the end, the section of the swarm that had threatened Prime was completely destroyed. But the war was not over. The swarm was vast, and this battle had only killed a fraction of their total numbers. The creatures were already adapting, learning from their defeat, preparing new strategies. Admiral knew this. He had planned for a long campaign. Over the next year, human fleets hunted the swarm across the galaxy. They developed new weapons as the swarm adapted to old ones. They trained council species to fight alongside them. They built defensive stations around vulnerable worlds and created early warning networks that could detect swarm movements months in advance. Captain became famous throughout the galaxy. Her ship was always at the front of every battle. She never lost a crew member. People started calling her the Ghost, a woman who moved through war like a shadow and left only dead enemies in her wake. But did not fight for glory. She fought because she remembered her grandmother's stories about Earth. She fought because she carried a small gray stone in her pocket that had once touched her soil. She fought because someone had to, and humanity had always been willing to stand when others would not. The final battle came in the outer reaches, where the swarm had gathered its remaining forces for one last attack. Billions of creatures, the largest concentration anyone had ever seen, prepared to sweep through the core worlds in a wave that would consume everything. Admiral assembled the full human fleet, all 30,000 ships, plus thousands more from council species who had learned to fight at humanity's side. It was the largest military force in galactic history. Listen to the Admiral's final address from her bridge. When our ancestors fled Earth, said, they carried nothing but hope. Hope that somewhere in the darkness they would find a place to survive. Hope that one day their children would return to reclaim what was taken. Hope that humanity would prove itself worthy of existence. Today we fulfill that hope, not through revenge, not through hatred, but through protection, through sacrifice, through showing the galaxy that we are not the monsters they feared but something greater. We are the shield that stands between the innocent and the darkness. We are humanity. The human fleet attacked. The battle lasted 3 days and nights. Ships were destroyed on both sides. Thousands of humans died fighting creatures that wanted nothing but destruction. But in the end, the swarm was broken. Their hive mind shattered. Their billions reduced to scattered fragments that fled into the void between galaxies. When it was over, stood on the observation deck of her battered ship and watched the stars slowly drift past. Her crew was exhausted. Her ship was damaged, but they had won. A message came from Fleet Command. Ambassador Han was addressing the new Galactic Assembly, activated the broadcast, stood at the center of the assembly hall, surrounded by delegates from every species. Behind her hung a massive banner showing Earth as it had once been, blue and green and beautiful. 300 years ago, said, you tried to destroy us because you feared what we might become. You were right to fear us. We have become something the galaxy has never seen, a species that returned from extinction to save those who tried to kill it. She paused, looking around the hall at the faces watching her. We could have let the swarm consume you. We could have watched from our hidden worlds as your children died screaming. Many of our people wanted exactly that. They said it would be justice for what was done to us. But we are not like you. We do not judge entire species guilty for the crimes of their ancestors. We do not condemn billions for the actions of a few. We are human, and being human means something. It means we stand up when others cannot. It means we fight when others will not. It means we protect the weak, even when the weak once tried to destroy us, because that is who we are. That is who we have always been. Today, we do not ask for your gratitude. We ask only that you remember. Remember what you did to us. Remember what we chose not to do in return. And remember that humanity will always be here, watching over the galaxy, ready to face any threat that emerges from the darkness. She raised her hand in salute, the same gesture Admiral Park had made 3 centuries ago, moments before he gave his life for his people. We remembered, we returned, and now we will never be forgotten again. Captain watched the broadcast end and reached into her pocket for her grandmother's stone. She held it tight, feeling the rough surface